Okay, okay. Yes, thank you. Thank you, Sandra. So as the exams date is closing in and we have almost a week left for the exam. And in this week, what we have planned is we're going to revise the entire topics that have been given in the syllabus of RIE CE 2025. And I think the schedule has already been posted in the group, and we'll be following that schedule and we'll be trying to cover all the theory aspect of it. And we'll be recommending you, we'll be, encouraging you to go through the PYQs, go through the questions and mock tests that have been given in the website and the application so that you'll be able to constantly go through it and revise yourself and be ready for the exam. So I guess we can let others join meanwhile. And yeah, this is the schedule. You have already seen the schedule in the group. So in today's session, we'll be covering we will be revising two major concepts, that is attitude towards education and interest in teaching. And followed by tomorrow, which is children and teaching profession, emotional and social adjustment. Then we'll go to leadership qualities and group management and interpersonal skills. Then we'll move on to general awareness of contemporary issues in school education and digital initiatives and pedagogy. And on the last 2 days, that is 26th, we'll do NEP 2020 and school education. And 27th, we'll do NCFSC 2023. We are giving a gap of 1 day, that is 28th, for you to recapitulate everything that you have gone through in these days and prepare yourself for the exam on 29th. Yes, Sinchana, you want to say something? Okay, so others are also joining. Yes, so I'll be starting because the recorded version will also be uploaded. So there's no need for me to uh, wait here. As we usually do, please unmute and ask it out. So I'll just put it in the chat box and we'll have a discussion over it. So let us start. So in today's session, the first part that we're going to do is attitude towards education, right? So in the teaching aptitude, if you have seen the syllabus that has been given in the RICE website, when you're filling the application form, they have also mentioned the syllabus and they have given 10 major topics in the syllabus. Among those 10 major topics, the first one is attitude towards education. So in this NCERT CE exams or the RIE CE exam, they're going to look towards the attitude that you have towards education. And questions will be asked in that aspect to see what attitude you have and are you suitable candidate to become a teacher and get admission into RIEs. So we'll be covering various aspects that are related to attitude towards education and how we should have a positive attitude towards education and how our attitude influences our teaching learning process and how it has an influence on the students also. So there are different components that we are going to cover in today's session. That is, we are going to discuss about different educational types. And then we are going to also look at the views of different perspectives on education. Inclusive education is something that we're going to talk about. Constructivism, as we all know, NCF 2005 has very broadly talked about constructivism and why it is important and what is constructivism. Right, we are going to talk about it, and we are also going to have shed some light on the uh, co-curricular and extracurricular activities that are very important aspect of the school curriculum. And we are also going to discuss the core principles of effective teaching. Moving on to the first one, that is types of education, or we also call it, types of knowledge. So learners go through different types of education, or learners acquire knowledge from different sources. These can be formal education, non-formal education, and informal education. Now, as here it is very clearly mentioned, formal education is structured learning in institutions. So the education that you get in your schools is known as formal education. Why we are discussing these types of education is because when we are having students in our classroom, usually earlier we used to say that students are, there was a very famous proverb, I don't remember the name of the person, students are blank slates, and it's teachers' responsibility to fill in those slates. Yeah. Okay, it was John Locke. Yes, it was John Locke who said that students are blank slates and it's teachers' responsibility to fill that slate and make students this thing, what to say, acquire the learn the knowledge. But it is not the case. What we have understood now is that students come in the classroom with a lot of information, right? And it's our responsibility as teachers to nurture this information and help them construct this information into knowledge. So students are getting this information from various sources. One is the formal education, that is a school setup where regular classroom teaching takes place for them. So that is formal education where they learn a lot of information, and through that information, knowledge construction takes place. Then non-formal education, that is organized learning outside the formal setups, outside the school where organized learning takes place. That can be online coaching, right? That can be your distance education. That can be your coaching and other things. So that is non-formal education. So students are also learning a lot from non-formal education. And in the present scenario, if you look at how students are involved in different teaching learning processes, other than going to school, students are sent with to lot of tuitions, coaching, online classes, and there are a lot of summer camps and other experiences, internships that students are provided with. A lot of non-formal, in the non-formal setup, they are also getting information. And the last one is informal. So what is informal? Informal is in their everyday life, right? It's not a structured setup, or not. It's not an organized setup. Informal is from anywhere. That is, if they're watching TV, there is a lot of information that is available on TV. If they're watching movies, if they're watching cartoons, there are a lot of words used in cartoons. For example, I don't know if you remember, I'll take an older example of a cartoon that was known as Powerpuff Girls. Okay, I don't know if you've heard about it or not. It's a very old cartoon. It used to come on Cartoon Network. So one of the villains in that cartoon, they were named Amoeba Boys. So I think you all are aware of what are amoeba. They are microscopic organisms and they do not have a definitive shape. So in the cartoon also they had kind of a shape which was not constant, and it was moving on. So students were aware of the term amoeba. They don't know the meaning of amoeba or what it is. So what I'm trying to tell you is that there are a lot of instances or experiences that students learn, right? Information that students get. In the present generation, students are watching a lot of YouTube, a lot of reels, Instagram, shorts, and all those things. So a lot of information is dumped, and it's our responsibility to help them guide this information into formation of knowledge. So when a child comes to a classroom, a child will have lot of sources from where the child will be getting, or the student will be getting previous knowledge, or some or the other idea they will be having about that particular concept, which they might not be able to explicitly know that it is connected, but they know something about it. So it's our responsibility as teachers. It is our responsibility as teachers to help students make connections to the previous knowledge. Okay, so that's why we are discussing this formal, non-formal, and informal. One more very classic example that I can give you is the Life Boys ad, right? In Life Boys ad, we're talking about germs, we're talking about pathogens, we're talking about microorganisms. The students know something like that exists, but they don't know the explicit names. So these experiences and examples can be used in the classroom by the teacher to connect their previous knowledge and introduce the chapter. So these are the different types, that is formal, non-formal, and informal. In informal, it can also be listening to parents talking or some people talking or just reading a signboard somewhere. So all those things can come in. Any doubt regarding this in this slide, or shall we move on to the next one? Any doubt regarding this slide? Okay, we'll move on. We'll move on to the next one. I hope this was clear. Thank you. Yes. So there are different perspectives in education, right? There are different perspectives, and we were just talking about it. And when we look at them, I'll just try to move this chat box. Ah, yes. So if you can see, there is something called as behaviorism, constructivism, cognitivism, social constructivism, and pragmatism. And there are other also. There are a lot more that are there. But let us focus on what we have put here. First one is behaviorism. Okay. Behaviorism focuses on observable behaviors and environmental conditioning. In the last class, we were discussing about Ivan Pavlov's classical conditioning on the dog, right? So what behaviorism says that we can bring changes, or we can develop desired behaviors among individuals through conditioning. Conditioning means through repeated practice, repeated stimulus, we can bring on change. And behaviorism was very prominent in the early 90s and mid 90s also as a form of teaching or education and learning. And a lot of the teaching structure and everything was based on that, where they used to say that students can only be taught by bringing changes in their behavior. So that was going on, and there are a lot of examples. B.F. Skinner is there. Then why? Sorry, there are a lot of psychologists are there. For example, Ivan Pavlov. So many people have talked a lot about it. And from behaviorism, what happened is we moved to constructivism. We started talking that students actively construct their knowledge. NCF 2005 was one major document that has very briefly talked about constructivism. In detail, they have talked about constructivism, and they have said that constructivism is something that we have to take up. Remember 1986 National Policy on Education. NP 1986 also talked about child-centered learning. The discussion of child-centered learning started from NP 1986, but constructivism word was explicitly used in NCF 2005. So emphasizing active learning and building knowledge through experiences. So the role of teacher here now has become from a main role. Earlier, behaviorism used to say that teacher is the main person in the class and students are the secondary. Teacher is the primary focus in the class. But constructivism changed it. Constructivism emphasizes that learners are the primary ones who construct their knowledge, and the role of teacher is of a mere facilitator, scaffolder, or a support. So what is the role of teacher? Teacher has to provide various learning experiences to learners. And through these experiences, learners will be able to actively construct their knowledge. That's what constructivism was talking about. And we took a lot of examples, right, about informal knowledge. We were talking about a lot of examples. Formal knowledge, there are a lot of examples. So what I'm saying is that constructivism, students come with a lot of knowledge. Teacher has to provide them experiences and help them construct the knowledge. Cognitivism talks about, it highlights mental processes like memory and problem solving. So cognitivism basically talks about how we perceive information, how we construct information in our schema, and there are different theories that come into cognitivism also. Social constructivism is nothing but constructivism in a social setup, right? It stresses social interaction and cultural context in learning. When we are learning something, we cannot be divided. We cannot, not consider the social aspect and the cultural aspect of it, because it plays a huge role in how we construct our knowledge. So social constructivism was talking about that. And then we come to pragmatism. Pragmatism views education as a tool for practical problem solving. So we say, you might have heard this term, people use in conversations and always they say that you have to be pragmatic. One should think pragmatically. What they're saying is one should be more realistic, and one should look at a problem with what can actually be done rather than being too idealistic and other things. So here it is about views education as a tool for practical problem solving rather than being too ambitious or, going setting goals which are not actually achievable. So based on what resources we have, based on what is the current situation of learners, the teachers, the entire setup, based on that, we have to plan accordingly. Any doubts with respect to perspectives of education that we have discussed here, or shall we move on to the next one? Yes. If you want me to slow down my pace, please let me know regarding that also. Okay, okay. We'll move on to the next one. Suraj, you wanted to ask something? Suraj, okay. I think it. Okay. So inclusive education, the next aspect is inclusive education. Inclusive education is something that is very important, and in the present day, there is a lot of discussion that is going on with respect to inclusive education. Can anyone help me with the definition of what does inclusive education mean? Yes, Charana? Jarana, you're unmuted. I thought you will be helping me with the definition of inclusive education. Okay, she muted herself. Anyone who will help me with the definition of inclusive education? What do you mean? What is your understanding of inclusive education? Yes. Am I audible to all of you?
Yes, sir. Sir, inclusive education could mean that all children, in spite of their like physical disabilities or any other things, they should be a part of this co-education system and they should be given due importance.
Yes. Thank you so much, Shreya, for that. Even Adi in group has said ensures equal opportunity for all learners, and it is saying educating all children together. So earlier there was a common misunderstanding that was there with respect to the term inclusive education. The term inclusion, people misunderstood it as including people who are physically disabled into the teaching learning process. But inclusion does not mean that. Inclusion means everyone, irrespective of their socioeconomic, their cultural, right, their social, their economical, and their physical or mental disability part of it, or even their uh, all the other aspect that exist, right? Because there are different types of learners, and there are different problems that each individual has, right? Irrespective of any of the disadvantage an individual has, everyone should be provided with an opportunity to learn. And inclusive education talks about that, creating an opportunity for all to learn. There is something known as UDL. Have I ever talked about UDL to you people? Have I ever discussed UDL with you? I don't think I've discussed, but the silence is confusing me. Have I discussed UDL with you all?
No, sir.
No. Okay. Okay. So UDL means Universal Design of Learning. Okay. If you are taking down notes, please take it down. UDL means Universal Design of Learning. So this is a form of instructional planning. That is planning for your classroom, in which you will be planning instructions based on the different learners that are there in your class. So universal design of learning talks about how we can provide different experiences, learning experiences in the classroom to meet the diverse needs of learners that is present in the classroom. So UDL is one hot topic which is discussed a lot, which is being discussed a lot in the contemporary educational scenario. And there are UDL lesson plans that are available, UDL formats that are available. The National Institute for Empowerment for Persons with Intellectual Disability, Ministry of Social Justice and Empowerment. It's an institute, it's in Hyderabad, and they are working a lot because it's an intellectual disability institute. They train teachers in special education. They offer a course called B.Ed Special Education, and they train teachers for intellectual disability students, right? To teach intellectual disability students in an inclusive classroom, not specifically to ID students in ID schools. No, in inclusive classroom, if you are facing having a student with ID intellectual disability that includes mental retardation, cerebral palsy, autism, and a lot of other things. So this UDL lesson plan takes care of all different type of learners in the classroom. There's a particular format and there's a way how to write it. So just remember UDL. UDL means Universal Design of Learning. So if a question is asked in the RICE exam regarding the abbreviation of UDL. So please remember, it's Universal Design of Learning, right? So coming back to inclusive education, we know the definition: inclusion of everyone, all the type of students in the classroom, irrespective of any of the disadvantage or any of the barrier or whatever it is they have. And inclusive education is something that has been actively promoted by our government. It has been actively promoted by different policies that have come in the recent days and that have come previously also. So inclusive education is very important because we want all the individuals in our country to be educated, right? And in no form or in no way can we say that we are not going to provide an access to inclusive education for them. And Right to Education Act 2009 is one of the major torch bearer for inclusive education, where it very explicitly talks about inclusion of students between the age 6 to 14 in schools, irrespective of whatever it is. One more major aspect of inclusive education is equity. Can anyone help me with equity here? What do you mean by equity? How is it different from equality?
Sir, equity means giving equal opportunity for the children to study.
Okay, equity means giving equal opportunities. Wouldn't that be equality? You're correct, but you need to modify a little bit. Anyone else? Thank you for that answer, Sanidhi. Others? What is your understanding of the term equity?
So equity means that giving people exactly what they need.
Okay,
Whereas equality is giving everything, like the same thing will apply for everybody.
yes.
Whereas equity could mean that like it will differ for each people.
Okay, thank you for that, Shreya. I will explain you all with an example in teaching. So you have different type of learners in your classroom. Just imagine you're a teacher and you have different types of learners, right? Some have physical differences, some have intellectual differences, some have socioeconomic differences, some are slow learners, right? Some are gifted students. So when you look into a typical classroom, you have heterogeneous group of students and every individual is different. When we talk about equity in teaching, we say that based on the understanding, based on the level of student, and based on different parameters that exist, we are giving them opportunities. We are giving them opportunities of learning, which in the end will ensure that everyone is on the same level. When we talk about equality, it's like giving same instruction to everyone. But what happens when we are giving a similar type of instruction to everyone? Some students might not be able to follow, some students it might be very easy, right? So based on the needs of the students, we are giving them instructions. For them, you have to put in a little more effort. For others, you have to include other things. So that is what equity talks about, right? So giving what to say, in support based on the needs is what equity talks about. And then participation is a very important aspect of inclusive education, where we say that everyone should be given equal opportunity to participate. Inclusion of everyone in the discussion in the classroom and participation in the classroom. And collaboration is also one major aspect in which inclusive education is talking about. Collaboration not only between students, collaboration between students and teachers, collaboration between school administration and teachers and students, collaboration between the community and the school, collaboration between different establishments, different bodies that exist with the school. Because when we collaborate, we are able to give effective experiences to learners in the classroom. So there needs to be proper collaboration because everyone is a stakeholder. We all need to know what is happening in the school setup and how students are being given these experiences and how can we improve it all the time. Then professional development of teachers. Professional development is also very much necessary. So there are a lot of teachers still there who are not trained with respect to how to handle students who have different needs. So professional development is something that is very much necessary and has been actively talked about. There are a lot of government programs that are undergoing that we have already discussed, which are trying to give tailored support to teachers and help them professionally develop to handle these situations, these scenarios, or the students in the classroom. So professional development is also very important. And then support systems. Student support system has to be there in place for in the schools. If you have seen schools from your childhood days to now, you might have be able to see that lots of schools have got ramps now. Have you seen ramps in your schools? Earlier, there used to be only steps, and now they have developed ramps, or there is steps, and on the side of steps, there is ramp.
Yes, sir.
So this ramp is nothing but to help students with, physical disability to be able to have easy access to classrooms. Even the classroom furniture should be friendly. For example, if a student is there who is visually impaired in the Okay, Sanidhi says there are separate schools for the blind. Does that come under inclusive education? There are separate schools that are run for different, group of students based on the needs that they have. But what inclusive education talks about it, irrespective of whatever it is, if they are visually impaired, if they are physically impaired, if they're intellectually impaired, if they are coming from poor socioeconomic background, or they're coming from, a poor cultural background, whatever the differences is there, all the students should be able to be sit in one classroom, and they should get education is what inclusive education talks about. Okay, inclusion of all the students into schools is what inclusive education talks about. So in a way, if you're looking at blind schools that are providing educational experiences to students, yes, we can also say that inclusive education also, this also comes under inclusive education. But we are also saying that not only blind schools, if a blind school is not available, we cannot say that the child should not be given an opportunity to learn, right? So even if a blind school is not available, right? Not sorry, blind school, school for blind students is not available. We'll not use the word blind. I'm really sorry. We'll use visually impaired. Okay, because we cannot consider someone as blind. It depends on the severity of impairment that they have. Some people are able to see, but it's blur. Some people have light issues. They're not able to. They're photosensitive. So there are a lot of categories that comes under blindness also. So visually impaired students cannot be denied admission into school because the school does not have facility. The schools have to develop all those facilities and provide learning experiences to the child. I have studied in my schools. There were a lot of students who were visually impaired. I have studied in a Kendriya Vidyalaya, and Kendriya Vidyalaya ensures that inclusivity takes place. Kendriya Vidyalayas are inclusive schools, and they give admission to students irrespective of whatever the problems the child has, and they try their best to provide quality education to all of them on par with other students that are there in the school. Okay. So yes, so that is what we're talking about, support system. And diversity is something that inclusive education takes care of. We are a country where students come from different places, students come from different cultural backgrounds, socioeconomic backgrounds, religious backgrounds. So all this diversity should be taken care of, and opportunities for learning should be provided for students irrespective of their diversity. So diversity is one major aspect that is an aspect of inclusive education. Any other doubt you have regarding inclusive education here? Yes? Any other doubts? So our RMSA, I hope you all know what is RMSA. Can anyone tell me the definition of RMSA, which is now become SSA?
राष्ट्रीय माध्यम शिक्षण अभियान.
Yes, Rashtriya Madhyamika Shiksha Abhiyan RMSA was also discussed a lot about inclusive education, and the schools that were being set up under RMSA were inclusive schools. Now RMSA and Sarva Shiksha Abhiyan has been merged into SSA. What is SSA?
Sarva Shiksha.
Yes, yes, Arpita, Chinmay.
सर्व शिक्षा अभियान.
It's not Sarva Shiksha Abhiyan and Rashtriya Madhyamika Shiksha Abhiyan and Rashtriya Uchchatar Shiksha Abhiyan. All three have been merged now, and they are called one, which is known as SSA. What is that SSA?
That's Samagra Shiksha Abhiyan.
Yes, Shreya. It is known as Samagra Shiksha Abhiyan. Please remember, the latest SSA is known as Samagra Shiksha Abhiyan. Any doubt, any discussion that you want to have regarding this slide of inclusive education? So there have been a lot of programs or a lot of policies that have come. Right to education is the one that we discussed here. Right to education is the one that took care of all these programs. And then there is something called as PWD Act or RPWD 2016 Act. Right, PWD Persons with Disability Act came in 1995, and then RPWD Act, that is rights, came in 2016. Rights of Persons with Disabilities Act. Then our national policies on education, national curriculum framework, and the Samagra Shiksha Abhiyan. Remember, RMSA, SSA, and higher education merged into Samagra Shiksha Abhiyan in the year 2018. Yes, Basudha Rani. Samagra Shiksha Abhiyan, uh, RMSA, SSA, all this merged in the year 2018. So from 2018 onwards, Samagra Shiksha Abhiyan, it's called as Samagra Shiksha Abhiyan. And one of the special focus of Samagra Shiksha Abhiyan is CWSN, that is Children with Special Needs, inclusion of children with special needs. And when we talk about the teaching aspects of it, we talk about individualized lesson plans, IEPs, for children with these special needs, right? And our NEP 2020 also talks about SEDGS, that is socioeconomically disadvantaged groups, right? And there are a lot of other programs at state level, at district level, and one more major program which came in the year 2016 was known as IEDSS, Inclusive Education for Disabled at Secondary Stage. Right, it was introduced under RMSA, then now it has got into SSA. The major focus of IEDSS, that is Inclusive Education for Disabled at Secondary Stage, was to provide financial support to learners. Okay, so all these are there. We'll move on to the next one. Any doubt here, or can we move on to the next one? Yeah, okay. We'll move on to the next one. Now, enhancing education through co-curricular activities. Right? We all have been a part of school system, and we all have experienced something called as co-curricular activities and extracurricular activities. Can you tell me the difference between co-curricular activities and extracurricular activities?
Sir, co-curricular activities which is related to our education.
Okay, related to your education or related to, you have to be a little more specific, Sanidhi?
In what we study.
Okay, related to what you study, okay.
Extracurricular is apart from our education, like sports, dance, and all.
Okay, thank you so much, Sanidhi. Yes, so co-curricular activities are supporting to the curricular activities that are already taking place in your school, right? So, what are the major aspects that are covered in co-curricular activities? Co-curricular activities help in reinforced learning, right? Co-curricular activities help reinforce learning. What are the different activities that come under co-curricular activities? Can you please list them?
Debate,
Okay, debate, very good.
seminars,
Seminar,
Essay quiz.
sorry? Quiz, yes.
Quiz.
Yes, Arpita.
model making,
Sorry, Chinmay?
model making,
Model making, okay, projects. Drama, music. Drama and music might go into extracurricular activities, but you can also connect them to co-curricular. Yes, I would agree. Drama specifically, you can correct. So when we are talking about co-curricular activities in broad, we can divide them into literary activities, cultural activities, art and craft activities, sports, right? Co-curricular, extracurricular. So there are a lot of things. Debates are there, elocutions are there. Yes, essay writing, Sanidhi says, is there, creative writing, right? Quiz competitions, there are a lot of activities that come under them. So what are the major role of these activities? To reinforce learning, to give a platform to students to reinforce what they have learned and put it into play. For example, when we are having this elocution competitions or pick and speak competitions, whatever students have learned, they have to develop on these topics based on what they have learned. So it provides a platform for students to showcase what they have learned. And second one is developing diverse skills. So participation in co-curricular activities helps students develop diverse skills, skill of public speaking, skill of group engagement, um, then the verbal skills that are developed when you participate in co-curricular activities, then group management, as I said, develops. So there are diverse skills, public speaking skills, your vocabulary, your confidence, your motivation. So development of diverse skills is aided when students are participating in co-curricular activities. Co-curricular activities also promote holistic development, right? They are not only looking into the aspect of their academics, they are helping students, develop into different areas also. I just move on to the next slide and see if we have a separate slide for extracurricular. Okay, so this slide is covering both co-curricular and extracurricular. I'm really sorry that in the heading extracurricular is not involved. So let us discuss both. So co-curricular you have mentioned already. Can you give some more examples of extracurricular?
Sports,
Dance,
annual day,
sports.
Okay, dance competition, sports. What else? Basudharani, you are unmuted accidentally, I believe. Okay, drama, singing. There are a lot of activities that come under extracurricular also. So this slide is covering both co-curricular and extracurricular. So when we are talking about no issues, Basudharani, it happens. So reinforced learning is something that takes place when students are participating in co-curricular and extracurricular. Developing skills. Students develop social skills when they participate in skits competitions, sports competitions. Chinmay, you are also unmuted. You want to say something? Okay, okay. Yeah. So development of diverse skills take place. Then participation in co-curricular activities and extracurricular activities help or promote holistic development. It not only promotes your intellectual development, it also promotes your physical development, your social skills development, emotional development. So holistic overall development of a child takes place when they are participating in co-curricular and extracurricular activities. Then enhance engagement and motivation. By participating in these co-curricular and extracurricular activities, students get a chance to actively engage with their peers. Not only with their peers, students also get a chance to actively engage with their faculties. And if there is an activity that is, for example, you have a community service activity that you have to do where you have to go out and conduct a survey, or you have to go out and conduct a campaign, social awareness campaign or something like that, right? So it enhances engagement skills, the social skills, and also it increases motivation. It improves motivation. Then fosters social interaction and belonging. By participation in co-curricular and extracurricular activities, will help students develop I mean, it helps in social interaction. Students will meet up, team up, and form groups with their classmates. Sometimes schools have something called as houses. I hope no issues in my. I know these issues happen because we are in the online setup. Uh, how many of your schools had house? Right, students were divided into different houses.
Sir, we had some.
Yeah, Sunny says we had. If students are coming from every school has different houses. Technically, there are four major houses. If you go to Navodaya, all over India, they have only one setup, that is Aravali, Shivali, Udaygiri, and Nilgiri. So, other than that, different schools have different types. They give different names to their houses. Some people give prominent personalities names. Some people give reverse names. So it varies from school to school, right? So in these house competitions, if you have seen, the barrier of class is removed and students can form groups, teams, right? Uh, uh, Based on their houses. So here interaction among different classes takes place. A 6th standard child and a 10th standard student can be in the same group, right? So this helps in social interaction. This helps in building of confidence. And this also helps in, developing a sense of belonging. When you are able to be a part of group and you are able to contribute and you can see that some growth is happening there, right? So through co-curricular activities, we can foster social interaction, we can foster belonging and motivation. The previous point also I'm reiterating. Then through co-curricular activities and extracurricular activities, natural talents can be identified, right? If schools did not have different competitions, let us say singing competitions, drama and arts competitions, or sports, lot of talent in our India could not have been identified. There are a lot of famous personalities who are now very prominent, and we all watch them on screens or we hear them. They all have been, to some or the other extent, have been identified in their school by their schools to teachers. How it was possible? Because they were provided with the opportunity of co-curricular and extracurricular activities. So co-curricular activities and extracurricular activities also help us identify natural talents, and also not identify, nurture talents. Once we know that a person, an individual is good at something, we can provide them training, we can provide them support, we can provide them coaching, we can send them for higher programs to help them, to nurture them. Then improved academic performance, participation in co-curricular and extracurricular activities makes them physically fit, makes them mentally fit. It's very much necessary for an individual to be both physically and mentally fit. And only when an individual is both physically and mentally fit, it automatically helps them improve their academic performance. Okay. And co-curricular activities and extracurricular activities prepare students for future success. Any doubt regarding this slide? Shall we move on to the next one? Yes. Can we move on to the next one? Or I think I should stop asking this and I should just move on. Only thing is that if you have any doubt, if you have any clarification required, or if you want to discuss something, I keep asking this so that we'll give some time to that and then we can move on to the next one. Even then, even if I'm just directly moving on to the next one, and if you have any doubt, just unmute and ask, or just put it in the chat box and I'll address it. Yes. So there are different teaching principles. Let us come to teaching principles that one need to know when we are teaching in the classroom. You might have also experienced it where your teachers might have done it in the classroom. So technically, there are different ideas that are given here, right? Known to unknown, simple to complex, concrete to abstract, particular to general, or specific to general, whole to part, analysis to synthesis, empirical to rational, psychological to logical. So what all these are talking about is when we are teaching something in a classroom, right? We have to go from the known to unknown, right? From simple to complex. If we see how our schooling, how the curriculum is structured in the school, we start with alphabets, right? Then we go to words, then we go to paragraphs, then we go to grammar, right? So even in science, if we see, we learn all the basics and then we go to advanced concepts, and these basics are necessary. So even in the classroom, when you're teaching a topic, you can use these teaching principles where you will start from the base and you'll go above, because these basics are necessary. If you are able to remember the Bloom's taxonomy class that we had, right, which talks about remembering and then understanding, then analyzing, applying, evaluating, and creating. When we go above the ladder of Bloom's taxonomy, we start from remember, that is basic, recalling of facts, recalling of terms and identifying things, all those things. Then we move to understanding. What are they? What is the definition? What is their explanation? Then we move on to apply, right? Applying that knowledge in a particular situation or a new situation. Analyze, what is it? What are the intricacies in it? If we are dividing into small parts and looking into it, what is actually happening? And then evaluate and create. In the highest part is create, where the student is able to create something based on what they know. So all these teaching principles talk about the same thing. Knowing from unknown to unknown. Known is something they already know. I'll again go back to the example of Lifebuoy ad, where students know that there is something called as germs, which cause diseases, because of which we need to wash hands. And from there, known, we can go to unknown, which is the introduction of microorganisms and classification of microorganisms into different types, right? That is known to unknown. Simple to complex, same thing. Taking a topic, mathematical topic, where we are talking about the simple parts of it, and then we are giving them complex sums. Using this simple knowledge, they are able to solve those complex sums. Particular to general, whole to part, all of them talk about the same thing. Moving on to the next one. Yeah. So here we have talked about all these things that are related to attitude towards education. So we need to have a positive outlook and attitude towards education. And only when we are having this positive attitude, positive outlook towards education, we'll be able to contribute better to the part of the education. Clear? Any doubts regarding this? Or do you want me to specifically explain something? Please let me know. I'll explain it. No doubts? Okay. So what we'll do now is we'll take a small 10 minutes break because it's a 2-hour class, and I know it's very difficult to sit continuously for a 2-hour class. And I too don't I know that the attention span is not something that goes for this long. We'll take a 10 minutes break. We'll take a 10 minutes break, and after that we'll start the interest in teaching. So the time now is around 10:48. It's almost nearing 10:50. So we'll start the next session at 12 o'clock. Is that fine for all of you?
Yes, sir.
Yes.